The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. The mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked a favor of him. And Jesus said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Declare that these two sons of mine will sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." But Jesus answered, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." Jesus said to them, "You will indeed drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and my left, that is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 heard it, they were angry with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you, but whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be the first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus.
Sometimes we might fantasize about being one of the followers of Jesus during his earthly life. Wouldn't it be wonderful, we think to ourselves? We would have no trouble with faith, we would know the entire truth, and we most certainly wouldn't behave like all of those other people. Guess again. Human behavior doesn't change all that much. And in today's gospel, we have a perfect example. Jesus has pushed himself to the point of exhaustion, teaching about humility, service, love, and the qualities of God's kingdom. And then out of the blue comes this question: will you give my two boys positions of power and honor when you enter into your kingdom? It must have been a stressful and discouraging moment for Jesus. So long they have been with him, and so little have they understood. The real meaning of his teachings will not take hold until they meet the risen Lord and are gifted with God's Spirit. As a matter of fact, the apostles don't fare very well in the telling of the Gospels, and they always seem to be remarkable in their ability to get things wrong at key moments. It is at the same time comforting and discouraging. Comforting in that we're not so much different than they were, and discouraging in that we have learned so little in 2,000 years. Is this a case of an overzealous mother trying to advance her two sons? Possibly, but you know, Mark tells the story in a different way. And in his account of the story, there's no mention whatsoever of Mrs. Zebedee. It is the two brothers themselves who make the request, all on their own. This is probably closer to the truth, and that would explain the outrage on the part of the other disciples at the self-promotion of the two brothers. Here are the apostles, those who walked with Jesus and who heard his teachings in person and saw his miracles, and what are they doing? They're jockeying for position, for power, for glory. They're thinking in terms all too human. Jesus was a great and powerful man, and he would soon rule all of Israel. And they were making sure that they were going to get in on the ground floor and that they were going to make provision for themselves. Jealousy, competition, they're always there, lurking in the background. And here they threaten to push the Spirit aside. But you know, promoting oneself and pushing oneself forward, especially when it's at the expense of others, and seeking power and glory, this is all the behavior of a frightened and weak ego. For one who truly walks with God, draws their sense of worth from that, and has no need of fancy titles and all the trappings that go with power. Jesus let it be known that he came to give his life to set us free. Free from what? Free from the world that human sin has created. It is a world driven by fear. Fear and a lust for power over others. And all of our social, economic, political, and yes, even many of our religious structures reflect this drive to dominate and control. But Jesus is not about power. He's not about domination. And he makes it very clear that he will have nothing to do with it. He has come to undermine all human power systems. And for this reason, he will be the target of their murderous hatred. As with his followers, he reminds them, if they're really doing their job, if they are really followers of his teachings, they can expect exactly the same. And the two brothers, they kind of shrug it off. They're very glib, they're very confident, and they say, sure, no problem. We can suffer the same thing that you do. But if they really understood the teachings of Jesus, if they really knew what was coming, perhaps they wouldn't have asked the question or allowed their mother to do so. Jesus gives his followers a warning. Do not look to the society around you for models of human relationships, for they're not based on equality, they're not based on justice or love. Instead, he insists we are to look to him, who, though divine, came not to be served, not to be worshiped, but to serve others. And renunciation of status was near and dear to the spirituality of all of the early Christian communities. Their goal was what might be called a sort of voluntary downward mobility. But serving one another is not something imposed from above, nor does it mean becoming a doormat for others. It is something to be done joyfully. It is a discipleship between equals. They firmly believe that in God's kingdom, no one is better, no one is more important than another, and they struggle to put this into practice in their communities, in their personal lives. Unfortunately, the church in later centuries forgot this warning and patterned itself on the power structures of imperial Rome and the medieval European courts. It is very easy to obsess over things about which Jesus said very little or nothing at all, while ignoring the many things he had to say about the abuse of power, about self-aggrandizement, violence, and indifference towards the poor and the weak. Jesus was concerned for far more than saving our souls or what happens to us after death. He was just as concerned with what happens in the here and now, in our lives and in our world. And for this reason, he revealed in himself a pattern of living a life that is both authentically human and authentically divine. If we want a transformed world, and who doesn't, a just and peaceful world, then there's something we have to do. We have to repattern our lives, repattern our relationships on the example of humility, love, and service that Jesus manifested in his life, in his teachings, in his death, in everything that he was. We indeed carry a treasure. Paul is right. The power and spirit of God. But that treasure is also in earthen vessels, our weak and fearful selves. That treasure must be set free to have the power to accomplish its kind purposes. And for this, love and humble service are the keys. Then, conscious of the gift of God's Spirit within us, we confidently bring our prayers to the Lord. That all of our communities, secular and religious, manifest more of a spirit of humble service, we pray to the Lord.